What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Early Edge NFL Kickoff Show, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Will Brinson, Alex Selznick, a.k.a. Propstarz, Danny Brasco, fresh off a two-man weave with myself from last night, which was like a bizarre – it's like doing a two-man show before one of these things. You're like, oh, that was 12 minutes. Cool. And seeing Nejad – I saw you tweet, you're like, I think my problem is like, because we do Thursday, Sunday, and then Monday. Like, I don't think I, as the guy who hosts every single one of the shows, necessarily have a firm grasp on who's going to be on each show, which is probably a me thing and not anybody else thing. But
no, I mean, it is. Will, it's ever changing somewhat with scheduling of various different people, including myself. But I think we're going to find some consistency with respect to who's on what shows in the very near future. So that's the good news. It's always a good cast, but I'm happy to join you guys on a Monday.
I don't really care. Like I show up when I'm supposed to show up, and we generally have fun, like regardless of who's here. Obviously, by the way, 10 o'clock a.m. every day on this very channel and on the place where you get your podcast. You can listen to Sia host the Early Edge with, and I don't want to probably get in trouble for this, but I believe expanding the pod. If you watch on CBS Sports Network, if you like to see us, these mugs on television, there will be more content coming on CBS Sports Network, so make sure and check that out. Quite a few texts about my preposterous appearance last Thursday on multiple sports network shows, dressed as some crappy version of Macho Man Randy Savage. Proppy, what's up, bud?
Will, what's up? Danny, Sia, great to see you guys. I actually was originally slated to appear last night. Unfortunately, have a little bit of a tree issue. I ordered Starlink as my internet provider, and for those of you unaware, it requires having direct access to a satellite, and literally if something is obstructing that view or that line to the satellite, for instance, a tree, you cannot get internet. So I spent the majority of the day yesterday repositioning a satellite all over my new property, trying to get a direct line, basically headed north to get internet service.
Wow.
Honest north, young man.
It's an honest day's work, Proppy.
Danny, I'm not even sure like how we ended up like doing. Last night's game was, I don't know. It was fine.
We're on the opposite end of the spectrum on Vikings and Colts, right? We didn't show down, but got the Vikings on that one. Got the primetime under, and you got the Flacco interception. So it was an interesting game. Played out pretty weird. Shout out to Grover Stewart, who getting that strip sack to start the first touchdown once again, which has been elusive to many of us.
Oh, right? Yeah, that's right. We did have, we had it was like the one time you didn't roll the DSC first touchdown score, which would have been a Colts there. Like if you played Colts and DFS, you crushed last night. You maybe see a similar spot if you wanted to get real aggro with the Buccaneers defense, which won't be owned at all tonight in this game, which features the Chiefs hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Chiefs are a robust favorite at -9 with a total of 45.5. So in theory, you could take this and say, all right, we're not expecting fireworks here because Patrick Mahomes at home. Andy Reid has been a lot less pass happy this season. Maybe it's partially just like, or partially like how the offense is sort of developed, partially the defense playing really good football and them not needing to open it up to win games. And then, of course, tons of injuries to guys, but now we have Xavier Worthy, who's starting to come on a little bit stronger in the past couple of weeks, and DeAndre Hopkins added to this team. On the Buccaneers side of things, I mean, it's just ugly. Let's if we have inactives, Josh, great. I know that Jalen McMillan out for, and I only bring it up because this game is like, we knew the Chiefs guys were already banged up, with Rashee Rice out for a while now. Obviously, Hollywood Brown's season just completely derailed. But then Tampa Bay, just a slew of injuries between Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, obviously both going to miss this game. Jalen McMillan, the rookie receiver, third round out of Washington, also out for tonight. So it's going to be a lot of Cade Otton. It's going to be Sterling Shepard, Raekwon we mentioned, and Trey Palmer. I mean, it's not a surprise, I don't think, guys, that we have the Chiefs as a huge favorite here. Danny, what do you like on the side or total?
So the spread is a little bit wide, but I think it makes a lot of sense. And I know the Bucs have been feisty. They found a way to put up some offense even without their star wide receiver duo last week against the Falcons. It was impressive, right? Like you said, Cade Otton heavily featured. They utilized both backs, Bucky Irving and Rachaad White, pretty effectively in the pass and run game. So Baker continues to kind of defy the odds, even in losing efforts. He's played well. He's volatile though. He'll end up, throwing a couple touchdown passes and a couple interceptions. I believe he has 7 over the last 3 games. So picks are coming. The turnover worthy plays are there in plenty. And this is a Chiefs defense that is the best defense Tampa Bay Buccaneers have faced since week 2 when they faced the Denver Broncos and put up a whopping 7 points. So yes, they've been involved in some wild scoring affairs with the Saints, 70 plus points, right? And some kind of lopsided totals. But with all the money on the over in the public market right now, all the betting action hitting the over, feeling kind of obvious, featuring, a shaky Bucs defense, an undefeated Chiefs team, the total hasn't budged, Brinson. I mean, it's still just locked in at 45.5. So I like the under for that reason. I feel like it's a sneaky look there, sort of the contrarian under here with a Chiefs team that might just get out to an early lead and bleed the clock behind their run game with Kareem Hunt. They're giving the guy 20 plus carries. So that could sap the game away. And I like the first half under as well. I'm going to double up on it, 23.5. EK, I saw another SportsLine guy on this, and he basically alluded to, you need to get to 24 here, more than 3 touchdowns and a field goal, or getting that, those 4 scores. I don't see it either. So, weather conditions expected early in this game, too. That could aid the under. Not going to lay the big spread, but I do think we see a big regression game from the Bucs, who are just so depleted on offense here.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprising at all. I would say, too, that if the Chiefs have a lead that is, if it's like 7+ at halftime, really, frankly, if they have any kind of lead at halftime, should really take a hard look at the second half under. Andy Reid's second half unders are absolute smash spots against, this is a Tampa Bay defense that has traditionally, under Todd Bowles, been a major pass funnel. They are, however, not very good against the run. They give up explosive runs I think they're like dead last in the NFL in terms of explosive run percentage. So it's just really not a great defense, dealt with some injuries and all that. But, it could be a real, like if just, thinking ahead of it, if you want to take second half, Kareem Hunt, if the Chiefs have a lead, Kareem Hunt rushing yards, Kareem Hunt rushing attempts, like Kareem Hunt will eat against this Bucs defense in a positive and or neutral game script. It's if Tampa Bay, something fluky happens, Baker comes out hot, the Chiefs struggle, turn it over. That's where things would change and maybe you get more of a shootout. I am going to begrudgingly take the Buccaneers +9 here. I need to look and see if I can win my picks pool and if I should stick with my guns here. I think, like with the Colts last night, in theory, like with the Colts last night, the idea here is that KC, not that they're playing with their food, just the way that they win games. I don't think Kansas City's going to come out here and score 35 points and Baker's down 20, in the fourth quarter, needing this insane rally to come back. I think there's a really good chance that KC has somewhere between like a 10 and 14 point lead. Isn't that worried about a touchdown from the Bucs, especially because you can't get onside kicks these days. And we see Baker maybe come through the back door. Now that's asking a lot, but 9 points is a lot for a primetime game and a granted Bucs team that is very depleted, going against maybe the best quarterback in NFL history and the best coach currently in the NFL in Andy Reid. So I get it. Steve Spagnuolo's defense, very good. But I do think the primary weapons for the Bucs, whether it's Sterling Shepard, Jarrett, or even Cade Otton, the guys who you probably want to be catching the most passes, can operate enough out of the slot where Kansas City will give up some yardage and some production that we could see the Bucs matriculate the ball down the field. Rachaad White, Bucky Irving, both in for this game. And so I'm going to begrudgingly take the Buccaneers -9. Sia, I don't believe you have an official play, but curious your thoughts on the side and total.
I really like the under. So I'm with Danny. I mean, honestly, I'm almost sad I didn't make this an official pick. We have something we also like that we kind of talked about on Twitter earlier, and that line is moving. If you're a Rakim Jarrett fan, like people have caught on over the last like 10 or 15 minutes, lines starting to jump, alt lines not really available except for one spot. But let me just go back to your question. I like the first half under. I like the overall under at 45.5 quite a bit, especially when you factor in the weather. As far as the spread, I get what you're saying about Bucks +9. I do think ultimately over 4 quarters, they may be too depleted. So while I'm not betting it, if you made me make a bet, it would probably be Kansas City -9, but I'm pretty comfortable with that under of 45.5.
Yeah. And just to be clear, like, I don't really love if I didn't make that clear, I don't love the Buccaneers +9. I just think it's a lot of points in a game that, like Tampa needs it. I mean, the Chiefs, I don't think the Chiefs are going to go into cruise control at home in prime time. Like, that's just not going to happen, especially against a bad defense. Mahomes should be able to get his. I just don't think the Chiefs are going to open things up suddenly in week 9 and say, hey, like, let's go Star Wars offense on the entire world after sort of keeping the Ferrari in the garage, so to speak. Proppy, thoughts on the spread or total here?
Yeah, fascinating matchup here. The Bucks and Baker really feel like regression candidate. If we look at Baker's results this season, statistically, he's been very good at playing way above expectation, running super hot in the touchdown category and yards as well. Even if Evans and Godwin were in the lineup, he was a major regression candidate, but certainly played well, no doubt about that. But without those guys, it was really painful to watch what he was working with last week. Jalen McMillan just was not on the same page. The other wide receivers just don't appear to be NFL ready. So this Chiefs defense is very good, both against the run and against the pass. So I think the Tampa Bay is really going to struggle to move the ball consistently. And it makes sense why the team total for Tampa Bay is as low as it is. I also like the under in the game. Then as far as Kansas City is concerned, Patrick Mahomes has been a fairly average quarterback this season, whether that's by and large because he's missing explosive weapons. But if we look at the numbers, the metrics as well, he is pretty much league average in nearly every single category. Now, I don't believe that to actually be the case, but he is playing that way thus far this season. As far as this Kansas City offense, really it's been leaning on the strength of the team, which has been the defense, and then offensively playing very conservative ball control style offense, not really attacking down the field, really doesn't have the personnel to do that necessarily. And then if we look at Tampa Bay's defense, this is a bad pass defense. Brinson, you mentioned it being a pass funnel. They're 26th in EPA allowed per dropback, 30th in defensive success rate on dropbacks. Kansas City, despite not being a very good offense, still ranks high in success rate offensively. So I do believe Kansas City will be able to move the ball against Tampa Bay, control the clock, grind out this game, keep Baker Mayfield off the field. I like the under here, also leaning Chiefs to win by double digits.
Hey, Will, real quick, just because Proppy mentioned the team total for the Bucks, I do think it's a pretty decent look to take their under 17.5 points at around -115, -110, because I think obviously 17 being sort of a key number there. I would be surprised. I do think Tampa can compete in this game, but I'd be surprised if they scored any more than 17. I do think this is a slow it down game on both sides for Kansas City, the way they run their offense, but also Tampa, the way Baker throws, like very near the line of scrimmage. He doesn't have his deep threats to really go deep here, or he certainly doesn't have his main 2 threats to hit some of those old school deep threats like the Jalen McMillans or Trey Palmers that could get loose because Godwin and Evans were getting so much attention. You don't really have that here, which is why we'll get into my prop. Certain guys I think closer to the line of scrimmage are going to get a lot of yardage, but I don't think that equals a lot of points for Tampa at the end of the day. So under 17.5 total points for Tampa, I think is a pretty good look.
3 things very quickly. One, if you're watching on X, come join the chat on YouTube. We're hanging out there, youtube.com/SportsLine. 2, shout out to my NC State Wolfpack, raising the banners, 2023 3/4 ACC champions, 2023-2024 Final Four run. Put it up tonight. Get to enjoy something every 25 years or so. And Dylan Jones says, Brinson talks too much. Yeah, buddy. Welcome to the program. That's sort of my thing. So if you don't like it, I don't know. Don't type it twice in the chat. Also, shout out to me for the Flacco INT. Sean Ritchie got 2 units off of it. 1 live money. I'd love to see it. Flacco, an interception machine. We mentioned the inactives. So we have Evans out. Obviously, Godwin has been out. Juju Smith-Schuster out for the Chiefs, as well as Drew Tranquil of note, and then Jalen McMillan not going to play tonight either. So let's get to, and that's per Jeremy Fowler. I don't know if we saw anything official. Nevertheless, he's not playing. Let's get to our official prop picks. Proppy. Oh, baby. Nothing better than when I put in my pick early, and it's the exact same one as Propstarz is dropping there. What you got?
Let's go, Brinson. Yeah, we're going to Old Faithful here, gentlemen. Travis Kelce over 5.5 receptions. Seems like every season when we're talking about Travis Kelce, gets off to a sluggish start, and you've got the majority of the fantasy community basically talking about how he's cooked and he's no longer the same dominant player. And that's exactly what's happened again. It's rinse and repeat every season with Kelce. Gets off to a slow start, looks a step slower. Then as the season progresses, he looks better and better. And then come the playoffs, obviously, he just continues to be one of the most dominant players in league history. But yeah, I love him to go over 5.5 receptions. He's racked up 30 receptions over his last 4 games, while averaging about 80 receiving yards per game. He's had a 10-catch game, a 9-catch game, a 7-reception game. And we're playing a Bucs defense that's a pass funnel, 26th in EPA allowed per dropback, 30th in defensive success rating. But what I really like about this matchup is that the Bucs play zone defense at the highest rate in the NFL at 81%. Patrick Mahomes is struggling against zone defense this season, but you know who doesn't struggle against zone defense both this season and throughout his career is Travis Kelce. He's able to find the seams in the zone, and I think he's going to rack up a lot of receptions, and I think he will continue to be the engine of Kansas City's passing attack, and I do think we'll see maybe a couple extra dropbacks because of this matchup as well. So I could see Travis Kelce getting 7 or 8 receptions in the first half. So I love this spot for him. I think he's primed for a big spike/ceiling game here. I think he's going to be heavily featured as long as the game is relatively close. So yeah, let's go Travis Kelce over 5.5 receptions. Absolutely love this spot for him. I really think this number should be 6.5.
Yeah, it's minus 130 there at BetMGM. I've got the same prop. And look, I mean, here's the thing with, especially when we talk about the zone stuff. If like the Chiefs concepts aren't getting open initially, Travis Kelce is so freaking good at getting off script, moving around and settling into those little pockets in the zone. And Mahomes will buy time behind the line of scrimmage. He will dump it off to Kelce. They'll pick up the yardage. There's no Rashee Rice, and I don't like, they get Hopkins and, we think about it as a 1-for-1 thing. It's not what that is. Like Hopkins is not Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce is Rashee Rice now. And you have, sorry, Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, if you recall, Brinson, on one of our streams we did when we were talking about the loss of Rashee Rice, I mentioned Travis Kelce being the biggest beneficiary because he wins in the same area of the field as Rashee Rice. And we know that this Chiefs ball control style offense, more conservative, really focus on throwing to the short and intermediate portions of the field, and that's where Kelce wins and operates and as good as any player, not just right now in league history. So it's made sense that Travis Kelce has picked up a lot of that slack and production from Rashee Rice after the injury and is playing at a very high level still.
Yeah, I mean, like people who faded Kelce in best ball or season-long fantasy probably looked pretty smart early on with the way the Chiefs offense was operating, but the Rashee Rice injury essentially led to Kelce taking that role. Now, I also think too that you're going to see the Chiefs, like they're an intelligent football team, Andy Reid, much like we talk about the Patriots, like they're finding ways to win games. You're going to get that bye. You turn it on in the playoffs. Well, the other thing the Patriots did really well was game plan specifically against whoever their opponent was that week. And all teams do this, but the Patriots were the best at it. Well, the Chiefs I really would be shocked if the Chiefs come out and say, we're just going to run the ball and impose our will. You don't do that against the Bucs. You come out and you dink and you dunk it and you pass to get a lead, and then you run to win when you make the Buccaneers one-dimensional. And that plan should involve a lot of Travis Kelce. Mike M asked, do you like Kelce over 59.5 receiving yards or just his receptions? Proppy. I mean, my take here would be, and I'll obviously see the floor to you here too, but like the issue with this is you could get 6 short catches that are sub 10 yards apiece. The Bucs can't do anything on offense, and the Chiefs go into shutdown mode, and Travis Kelce doesn't see any second half targets. So I'd rather take the receptions personally.
Absolutely. I think a volume-based approach, especially considering the matchup, Kelce's role, I could really see, again, leaning on those short routes near the line of scrimmage, him having a line like 7 receptions for 49 yards. So much more comfortable with the receptions here, taking a volume-based approach. I do lean over on the yards, but yeah, I think receptions is the way to go, particularly in this matchup.
Sia, you're on the other side, but certainly a prop, and I think Danny has one of these too, that could correlate very nicely with the Chiefs passing the ball well, in the sense that Rachaad White gets involved prominently in the receiving game.
Yeah, so this is interesting because I'm seeing that Danny has a similar play here, and not to spoil Danny one of two of his plays, but I was thinking about just taking Rachaad White's receiving prop over. Part of the reason the reason I'm going with the combo prop, which I gave out on SportsLine, which I gave out on the early edge this morning, is because I wasn't sure about Bucky Irving's status. And still, knowing he's active, I still don't exactly know how well he's going to play. Granted, the last couple of weeks with the toe injury, he's been just fine. But we'll kind of see. I kind of wanted to lean towards the healthy guy. What I love about Rachaad White is that he's getting the receiving work, clearly, but he's also getting some rushing attempts. And if you look at his rushing attempt line from last night versus – I don't know, like 2 hours ago, it's heavily juiced to the over now at 7.5. So I'm expecting him to get about 8 or 9 carries. I think that's a fair analysis there. And you don't need to average much yard per carry wise to get to like 30, 35 yards. And then I'm just spilling over with all of the receiving yards that I anticipate him getting. So this line has already shot up since I put it out on SportsLine. It's actually, the combo line now is 59.5 rushing and receiving. But 55.5 is where you got it if you were a SportsLine member, or if you just simply watched the early edge this morning. Long story short, I think he has to be involved with so many questions at the wide receiver position. I mean, geez, me and Danny were talking on Twitter for like 20 minutes about Rakim Jarrett, a guy that most people haven't even heard of. And for the record, his line is starting to spike up a little bit too, as I mentioned earlier. But you have to trust the guys that you know. Cade Otton is one of those guys. Rachaad White has always been a good receiving option. So I think when you're talking about Baker passing it near the line of scrimmage, which he's done all season, even when he had healthy receivers, I think Rachaad White is one of your few trusted options. Give me the receiving, but give me some rushing too, over 55.5 combo line.
Yeah, and Danny, you saw the comment from Polywana there, where it's like, look, I mean, you know, Chiefs pass rush might get home here. Bucs have a good offensive line. I mean, Chiefs pass rush can definitely get home, and if it does, you're going to see Baker get the ball out quickly, particularly with like. They're guys that can scare downfield, but this is not Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Like, it's going to be Cade Otton, it's going to be Rachaad White. Like, those are the guys that you have to trust in this spot. So Rachaad White receiving makes a ton of sense. You've got one more as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I took his receiving yards. I like the combo line that Sia is playing as well. I mean, just to piggyback on what he was saying, 5 of the last 6 weeks, he's cleared his receiving yards total. He has 2 games with 70 plus. So if they're in a negative game script as well, he could rack that up in sort of garbage time. And yeah, his receiving yards total, which I got in at 23.5, is now all the way up to 29.5. I'm honestly still comfortable with playing it there. I saw another SportsLine analyst, I believe it was Dave Richard. He had it at 20.5, and he was recommending laddering it up, and so that was a thought that I had. However, I feel like I got my own little ladder going, and Sia's got one potentially with another guy that he kept alluding to. We were talking about. I'm interested in a Baker Mayfield rushing yards ladder. And it's a similar theme. Steve Spagnuolo blitz attack, coming heavy at the Bucs, negative game script, trailing. Baker's got a depleted wide receiver room that can't get separation against a vaunted Chiefs defense with Trent McDuffie and really good defensive backs, really good linebackers that can play good coverage, like, you know, Bolton and company. And maybe it's a wet field out there and Baker's got to do it himself. and he's going to take off. We've seen Baker use his legs in multiple games before. He's got games with 34 and 42 rushing yards. 25 plus is plus 250, and 40 plus is plus 920. So I got over 13 and a half rush yards. And I think if Baker has some desperation moments, like where is my offense, he'll do it on his own. You know how he gets in prime time. Baker's got that dog in him. So look for him to put his head down and do it for the team, right? Give me Baker rush yards.
And low key, it's week 9, NFL season. Every game is really important. Like, I'm not trying to suggest that any game's not important, but the Bucs are 4-4. If you lose this, you lose this game, you're without your top receivers. God was done for the year. You fall to 4-5. The Falcons just won again on Sunday. They're 6-3. They're undefeated in the division, by the way, which is a massive tiebreaker. And then you have this clog of teams at 5-4 to 4-5 in the NFC West, and everybody at 500 or better in the NFC North, plus Washington and Philly, who are going to be in the wild card mix all the way down. Like, if you're Tampa and you fall to 4-5, I know you don't have everybody and you're playing the 2-time defending champions on the road in primetime with Mahomes and Reed. It's like a really tough spot, but like, it's a lay it on the line game. If you're Tampa, maybe you pull back if things get out of hand. But I mean, this is, the AFC profile's so much weaker right now than the NFC. We have 9 teams in the NFL that have 2 wins or less. Almost 9 weeks into the season. That is insane. There's some really bad football teams, which means with most of them in the AFC, the NFC is really top heavy right now. And if you're Tampa, this is a spot where, as good as you think you might be, you've got the 49ers next week, and then you got some easier games out of the bye, Panthers twice. But I mean, it's you can only fall behind so much and try to get hot down the stretch. It's a big game. I think Baker lays on the line for sure. Let's get to some questions in the chat. Craig White says, DeAndre Hopkins over under 43.5 receiving yards at -110. Any thoughts from you guys there?
I think it's pretty solid. Again, we're hoping for more route participation than obviously we saw last week. DeAndre Hopkins, though, however, in Tennessee did not have high route participation. Obviously came into the season banged up. The idea is that he's going to get healthier as the season progressed. Still does not look 100% right now. He's not going to be a full-time player, especially as he acclimates to the offense. I speculated a bit last week, took his over, considering it was in the low 30s. But yeah, I'd feel a little more comfortable if I felt like the route participation was closer to 60-65% versus the 40 to 45% that it was at last week. Hopefully it gets bumped up, but I'd rather wait and see before I speculate again.
Yeah, and part of the problem there with Hopkins too, one, if the Chiefs get a big lead, they're not going to run him out there on every play because they acquired him for the stretch run, right? They will ease back on these pass catchers and turn this into a running affair. And so it's a little thin. You basically have to get there if you think the Chiefs win big on a minimal number of targets in routes in the first half. So I'd probably pass on that. Maybe use him as like a DFS option or anytime touchdown score. Better play tonight, Palmer or Watson? I mean, I would say in theory, like, you're probably going to get more dropbacks from Baker than you are Patrick Mahomes. So give me the Tampa Bay guy. Hard to, especially Watson. Like, we really don't know how this, like, Hopkins is going to mix in and like who snaps he's taking. Watson scares me a little.
I wouldn't touch Watson.
Sorry, go ahead, Sia.
I wouldn't touch Watson as it relates to Trey Palmer. I think you have to go to Trey Palmer there.
Yeah.
For sure. Do both quarterbacks go over on rushing, Danny?
I mean, Mahomes likes to use his legs, right? When there's nothing there, he's been so crafty the way he scrambles. I just like Baker more because of the potential negative game script. If he's trailing and they need a key first down, like, I really think that these guys might struggle to get separation. Like I said, this is by far the best defense they've faced in a month, and it might show, especially with a really depleted team that, performed well against the Falcons. The Falcons are sort of fraudulent, in my opinion. And, they're in Arrowhead in weather. It's just going to be tough sledding after, a week with film on Kate Otten and company, how they're going to play without Godwin and Evans. Tough stuff against Spagnuolo.
Terrible weather in KC. This is a chat legend. Jeff Stenberg says terrible weather in KC. So everyone thinking sloppy game. So I'm going taking D-Hop 100 plus, receiving 9-1. Sportsbooks will never see us coming. I'll be honest. It's brilliant. I mean, he says that. I don't know. I think I would rather have a 9-1 on Hopkins to get 100 yards than a straight bet on Hopkins to get 44 yards. Like if Hopkins is going to get there, he's just going to get there. You know what I mean? Like give me the 9-1 option. Don't get me wrong. I don't think I'm not interested in D-Hop tonight, but I think I'd rather have the bigger payoff personally.
Yeah, can I just add something to that? Because I kind of have a fun bet that I suggested I might give out tonight. And I suggested that earlier this morning on the early edge. But I mean, knowing Jeff, I know he's like kind of joking with that air quote question. Yeah. But I mentioned Xavier Worthy earlier, and that I liked his receiving under from a reception standpoint, which is 3.5. And it's juiced to the under. It's been juiced to the under all day, as long as these picks have been out. However, since I don't have a ladder, because I was waiting for Raheem Jarrett ladders to come out, it only came out at one place. And it's not BetMGM, it's not DK. It's, so I'm not comfortable giving out a ladder if it's only in one singular place. But you can do this sort of non-correlating thing with Xavier.
Yeah, now we're talking.
Under receptions of 3.5, which I'm pretty comfortable with. And you can take his over alt receiving yards at either your choice, 45.5 or 55.5. At 45.5, it's 7-1. At 55.5, again, parlaying that with the under receptions, it is 12-1 plus 1,200. So I think when you're looking at a receiver and you're looking like dynamic odds and things of that nature for this particular game, I don't expect Xavier Worthy to have a lot of involvement. And honestly, I think part of that involvement could be like via an end around or something, but could also be with one of those quick passes from Mahomes or something downfield where they designed it specifically for him. He could have 2 catches on the night and potentially 65 yards. So I think that's a fun way to make a better receiver prop in this particular game.
Could not agree more. He is the archetype for the reverse correlation parlay when you talk about low volume receptions, but just an explosive player, fastest guy ever at the combine, who could catch a screen pass and go 70 yards and never see the ball again for the rest of the night. Like, I mean, yeah, like if you're doing spicy stuff, Xavier Worthy should certainly be in there. Kate Otten over 51.5 receiving.
This one felt like just so obvious that I stayed away. I was almost thinking like, he really impressed me last week. Not only is he clearly having chemistry with Baker Mayfield, but he went and made some nice catches. Like he got up there and showed off some athleticism and that he's a talented tight end. And I'm thinking, who's left to target but Kate Otten? It just feels like peak of the market for me. So I stayed off for that reason, but he does seem like an obvious play. What do you think, Sia?
Well, for the record, the 51.5 at like MGM and a lot of other places, I think is juiced heavily, like minus 40, minus 135. I just would not be interested in that. Other places have it at a normal price, like minus 115 at 53.5. At a certain point, you kind of miss the boat on it, or there's just the price is too high. And Danny, I think that's probably what you're thinking too. Like it just doesn't seem like the right play. That doesn't mean he's not going to get it. And people on top might be good. But I mean, at 51.5, 53.5, I'm personally just not interested, especially if I'm not getting like a minus 105 or a plus 100, something like that from a price standpoint.
And I think there's a decent chance too that Spags sort of takes the safety. Like the Chiefs have been bad against tight ends. I think there's a decent chance he brings the safeties in and says, "Look, we're like Otten can catch the ball 5 yards away from the line of scrimmage, but we're going to stop him." And he becomes more of a red zone threat, more of a sort of a reception guy. His receptions was like over 5.5 minus 200 or something crazy. And that they say we're going to let our corners live on an island out of the perimeter against these. I mean, no offense, Raheem Jarrett and whoever else is out there, right? Because I assume we'll see Otten and Baker's. Oh God, I'm drawing a blank on the guy in the slot.
Trey Palmer, Sterling Shepard.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, total blank. I mean, like I just think we'll see Baker try to pepper those guys, but then maybe like the defense uses the safeties as a way to say, all right, you can get your receptions, but you're going to churn a ton of clock and have to have be perfect and not make mistakes. So yeah, I think maybe I would probably prefer receptions over that. Taylor's asking about a teaser. Man, I mean, look, I got the Bucs +9 here, but the Bucs can get blown out of this game pretty easily. So I would be very cautious on a teaser where that under 52.5 gets there easily, but it's like, I don't know, probably like 27-10 Kansas City is not outrageous at all.
Teaser Bible says you don't tease totals. Just saying. Yes. Teaser Bible knows. Teaser Bible knows.
Right. But the DGen, the gambler, says we only have one game left. So we have to, if we're going to tease something, we have to grab something from both parts of the game.
So can I just say something about teasers? Like, keep in mind, you don't need to do the traditional 6.5, 7 point teaser, or even the 3-team 10-point teaser, which I can't think I did that. Last time I did that, it was like 15 years ago. So that should tell you
in
something.
college for sure. Yeah.
But they're all, yeah, exactly. Those were so
And
fun.
they never won. They never won. Like, there's always a loser in there.
Real quick, don't forget to look for alternate totals. And that's by team and by the game. So you can kind of like do your teaser thing, but do it with the total that you're comfortable with and pay the juice that you're comfortable with instead of the pre-manufactured play that the sports books are offering you. When I do my same game parlays, and Will, I know you're giving out one in a second, but there's a lot of times where I'll put in an alt total that I like and an alt spread that I like. And it's in 6 points, it ends up being, 9 or 10 or 11 points each way. But then I'm adding one other thing in that I'm really confident in. That's also an alt line in my favor. And then boom, I'm getting the right odds. I'm not saying that's like the responsible way of betting, but if you're already doing the irresponsible thing via teasing and teasing total, then find the alt total that you're comfortable with that surpasses a key number that your teaser may not.
Like if you're going to take a shot at 3 p.m. at the bar, have a glass of water with it. Like be responsible. It's true. Like you could find your total, find your spread that you like, that you think is okay, and then toss in like Rashad White, 25 rushing or like 50, what Travis Kelce, 50 receiving yards, whatever you need to do. 2 other legs that are like crazy low juice, that they'll get it just enough where it's like it's even money and better than that actual teaser. Mayfield over 22.5 completions.
I like me a good completions prop, but I think 22.5 is such an efficient line. I mean, I think 21.5, I might have been interested in the over, and those margins are very small. So for me, I think it's okay. He is a guy that gets his completions in. I might be looking at the attempts here with such an inexperienced receiver crew at 4.5. So this would be a stay away for me.
Yeah, his passing prop numbers are curious, and I think it just goes to show the books are really respecting either the Chiefs defense or the weather or the spot, what have you, because the last 3 weeks for Baker, 24 of 36 for 325, 31 of 45 for 370 yards, and 37 of 50 for 330 yards. So he's dwarfing these totals, and his pass yards total is what, 231 and a half, something like that. His interception prop is up to minus 165 to throw a pick. And his completions there, just 22.5. He's had 30 plus in the last 2 weeks. So, like Proppy was saying before, potential regression candidate. Those lines are curiously low.
Well, also keep in mind the defenses he was going against and the time of possession that you're likely going to see with the Chiefs versus the teams he played in the last few weeks.
Yeah. So
not to mention Godwin and Mike Evans.
Yeah. Again, like if Kansas City has a lead in the second half, they are going to run a bunch of field goal drives that eat up 8 minutes of clock, 13 plays, and Tampa Bay is just forced. Like it's a ton of dropbacks, but then they're like inefficient dropbacks and forcing the ball in there. So yeah, I mean, I think the both quarterbacks throw an interception. I like. The only issue is will Mahomes be in a position where he might have to throw an interception? I think that's the thing you have to worry about. Several people asked anytime touchdown for Kareem Hunt.
I think that was like minus 200. So, that's not a straight bet I can make on an anytime touchdown score. But if you want to make a DGen parlay, I definitely see Hunt getting, 15 carries and probably finding pay dirt at some point.
Chet asked Sean Tucker over 5.5 rushing yards. If Bucky is limited, this might be a good look. Yeah, I mean, the game script does not set up well for Sean Tucker to get a ton of carries. And he won NFC Offensive Player of the Week and then got benched the following week. So I'm a little cautious there, I think.
These are cheeky. I was looking at Carson Steele over 12.5 rush yards, positive game script for the Chiefs. I was like, too cheeky. Let me just pick a guy I know will be involved.
Yeah, exactly. We mentioned D-Hop over 3.5 receptions. That's a lot of juice for a guy who, again, we just don't know what the game plan for him is going to be. Until Proppy points out, until consistent snaps, it's kind of hard to go there. Noah Gray over 22.5 receiving yards.
I actually do like that. Ooh. I think Noah Gray's going to be a target. I mean, I think his reception prop is 2.5, and I do think it's juiced to the under. But if you look at he's been on the field quite a bit. He's running a lot of routes, so not that many fewer than Travis Kelce, for example. Granted, Travis Kelce is like a primetime target. Noah Gray is not. But 22.5, it's not an official play of mine, but I would actually lean to the over there.
Okay. One more, and then we'll get out of here. So a lot of questions in the chat. Just want to try and answer as many as we can. Xavier Worthy rush receiving over 46.5. It's just boom. He's just a boomer bust player.
Too speculative. I would rather play that crazy plus 700, plus 1,200 thing with him rather than the rushing and receiving, just the simple.
Yeah, and like that's the thing too, Sia, with that, you could go under 3.5 receptions plus over rush receiving yards. He takes an end around 50 yards of the house, doesn't catch a ball the whole game, but is still a huge factor, and you cash it. I agree with you completely. I wouldn't want to bet the straight up. I'd want to try and make some big cash on Xavier Worthy instead. Okay. I've got a parlay that involves Xavier Worthy. Let's throw it up. Xavier Worthy, anytime touchdown. That's sort of the hard one to get there. Also kind of correlated Mahomes over 1.5 passing touchdowns was a little juicy. And then Travis Kelce, 50 receiving yards. Bucky Irving, 25 rushing yards. And Cade Otton, 50 receiving yards. Gets you to 10-1. It's not my best parlay. Yeah, you need the Xavier Worthy anytime touchdown, but I'm okay with that. He's a big play guy, and they've showcased him in some of these primetime games. So there's your 10-1 Brinson parlay of the day. Let's remind everybody that we've all had our first touchdown bet called back before, and BetMGM is giving you a second chance. With BetMGM's Pro Football Second Chance, place any first touchdown score bet. If your player doesn't score first but scores second, get your entire stake back in cash. No opt-in required. Here's how it works. Place a pregame straight first touchdown score bet in any NFL game. If your player scores the first touchdown of the game, you win your wager as normal. If your player scores the second touchdown of the game, you'll get your stake back in cash. It's that simple. Log into BetMGM for more details. Now we have our first touchdown score bets. I believe Proppy, as the rules and regulations require, you are the only guy with a diamond above your name, which means, and somehow you have like the kind of the best choice here. You're going with the Tampa Bay tight end who caught 2 a couple of weeks ago on National Tight End Day.
I am. I'm going to go with Cade Otton, who has been heavily featured and really picked up a lot of the slack with his Tampa Bay passing attack, sans Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. It's been the Cade Otton show. He has just absolutely elite route participation, not just for a tight end, but for a pass catcher. He literally is on the field for every single Baker Mayfield drop back, and now he's leading the team in targets without the 2 alpha wideouts. So it's been the Cade Otton show. I would also suggest this is an advantageous matchup. The Chiefs have given up more yards to the position, more targets to the position than any defense in the league. The linebackers do struggle in coverage as well. So should be plenty of volume and some game script that should benefit Cade Otton. So I will take him as he looked like he was the best option on the board as far as I'm concerned.
All right, Sia. We both have the same guy here. I think for me, it was, looking at a Bucs guy, whether it was going to be Rachaad White or Cade Otton. But I want what's his name in the chat to hear your sultry voice instead of mine. So fire away on it. Well, why Rachaad White makes sense here at 14-1.
So, I think the main reason is he can do it both ways, and that's why I like his combo prop. He can do it through the air in the short area, much like Cade Otton can do from a receiving standpoint, but could also potentially do it in the rush game. And for the record, he has been, granted, against much worse rush defenses than the Kansas City Chiefs, but he's been interestingly efficient this season in a few games here. And I don't know, that might not be an accident. If they're on the 7 or 8 yard line and it's not Bucky Irving and it's Rachaad White, I do think Rachaad White can run one in from 5, 6, 7 yards out. And again, I think he can catch one too. However, because we have the same pick, Brinson, I want to say this. I've never called you Brinson before. I always call you Will.
It's fine. Everybody does it. It's fine.
I prefer Brinson, though. It has that hard consonant. It's just a lot cooler to say.
Yeah, I'm in my ex-wife's phone as like Brinson. Like it's like there's no like most of my friends, like there's no Will. It's just Brinson. So like I hadn't heard that, but I didn't bat an eye. I like it.
All right. Well, fair enough. Well, Brinson, here's the thing. Because we have the same pick, I want to give out Rakim Jarrett at 35-1 his first touchdown, but as soon as the Jalen McMillan news came out, that went down to 22-1, and I don't know that that's tremendous value. I do think another guy at 22-1 is actually pretty great value, but on the other side of the ball, on the Kansas City side, Noah Gray, we just talked about, he's 22-1. Now, think of all the pass catchers. Take Kareem Hunt out of it for a second. All the pass catchers for the Chiefs in the red zone. Travis Kelce, number 1. Somebody tell me who number 2 is, because I don't think it's Xavier Worthy. I'm not talking
It's
about
not Hopkins yet. Yeah, I agree with
and
that.
I don't know exactly. And because I don't know that it's Hopkins yet, I absolutely think Noah Gray is in play. I think 22-1 is actually pretty decent value. So I wanted to throw that out since we have the same pick.
No, I would agree that I looked at Gray for a minute, and then like I think for me this boiled down to, okay, we have these like, yeah, the Bucs are huge dogs. They might get the ball first and have a scripted setup and just move the ball down and score. And like they are so unafraid to be just blunt force trauma with Rachaad White down by the goal line. Like if they get it, like you get a pass interference and the ball's on the one, he's getting 3 carries, right? I mean, maybe Baker bootlegs one, but I agree with you. I think Noah Gray also comes into play when you start seeing those funky formations by the Chiefs down by the goal line, including when they line up Travis Kelce in the Wildcat and he fakes like he's going to run and there's a little pop pass to Noah Gray. Like all of that should be on the table. So I don't mind a Noah Gray first touchdown or Noah Gray anytime touchdown at all. Danny, after there's nothing worse than like you're like I'm gonna drink from this well. I'm gonna drink from this well and I'm gonna get some good water. And then you step away from the well and somebody else gets out. It's a slot machine. That's what it is. You're like pulling the handle, and you walk away for 2 minutes to get a cocktail, and because your waitress isn't showing up, and the freaking Colts do it in all places. But so you're going back to the defensive well here.
I mean, to be fair, I would have had Vikings first defense, first touchdown score. So I wouldn't have had it anyway. But yeah, shout out. I was mentioned at the beginning of the show, Grover Stewart with the strip sack and Kenny Moore running it back. We've seen some crazy defensive touchdowns. And shout out my guy, Ryder at True Sports Group, who represents Grover Stewart. That's my boy. Yeah, I'm going back to the well. Chiefs defense. I'm talking about all this, regression. And by the way, shout out to BetMGM too, because I've now got 4 second touchdown scorers on the year. I had Jordan Addison in the Vikings game, Mark Andrews in a previous Ravens game. I mean, a defense and another. It's ridiculous, but good thing to get my money back. And I feel like the Chiefs defense could come up with a score here. I'm looking at a Baker Mayfield pick 6. We talked about how many he's thrown over the last 3 weeks now. And in a negative game script, once again, I really feel like Chiefs will be in front. He might just be chucking it. So look for a turnover-worthy play. Look for the Chiefs to put one in.
All right. By the way, Craig says every time I see a DST first touchdown, I think of Danny. So good for your brand. Great job by you. Let's get one more of these diamonds up tonight, and let's also recap our bets for Monday Night Football. I think thank you, Josh. I am on the Bucs +9, Travis Kelce over 5.5 receptions. Proppy, I mean, I'm joining Proppy. This is Proppy's world. I'm just living in it. Also on Kelce over 5.5 receptions. Sia has Rachaad White over 55.5 rush and receiving yards. And Danny's on the first half under at 23.5, the full game under at 45.5, which for the record, all of us like as well, that under. And I think the second half unders are a good look with the Chiefs lead. And then Baker Mayfield for Danny over 13.5 rush yards, Rachaad White over 23.5 receiving yards. Okay, that'll do it for us as we fight off the bots in the chat. Great job, producer Josh, crushing it as always. For Sia, for Danny, for Proppy, I'm Brinson. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you guys later. Have a great night.